What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Commander Ad Populum. Commander for the people, by the people, for the people. This is episode 26. My name is Ryan. Welcome back if you're a returning listener. Welcome for the first time if that applies to you. We're going to conclude our interview this week with Loreley Weisel. I thought the first half turned out great. We got some positive response. Today we're going to wrap things up, but before we do, we've got some very important podcast business to get to. First of all, huge thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com. They are based out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. They are there for all of your gaming needs, all of your Magic the Gathering needs. And of course, you can find Commander Ad Populum alongside all of Fusion Gaming's sponsored content on the manabase.com. I would encourage you to check out both of those places. And of course, if you are frequenting and buying cards from FusionGamingOnline.com, that does help support me and Commander Ad Populum. If you did want to commission any altered art cards and have Fusion send them directly to me, I get those cards in 2 or 3 business days. So that does help to expedite any commissions or sending cards. And if you are from the United States or overseas and you wanted to avoid international shipping charges from buying from an American store or sending me your own cards, just buy them from FusionGamingOnline.com. Second big thank you, all of the patrons from over on patreon.com/cadpopcast. You guys do also make it all possible for me. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the community, the sense of belonging that everybody in the community gets. It's a great place to be. So if that sounds interesting to you and you do have the means to pledge a couple dollars per month, I would appreciate it. And I think that you would too. Plus, if you are into altered art cards, you are helping support that end of my business as well. You do get things like discounts and first crack at some of my stock items that don't get auctioned. So like I said, if you're into alters, check out the Patreon page. For everything else, there's @CadPopcast on Twitter and the Commander Ad Populum Facebook page where you can find the thread to this episode and the previous one where we started the interview with Loreley. If you want to comment, give us your thoughts on any of the subject matter, I'd very much appreciate the interaction there, of course. Anything longer formed or private, you can send it over a Discord private message. You can contact me through the Patreon messenger service or email cadpopcast@gmail.com. All that out of the way, let's get right back to part 2 of the interview just after this.
It would be like, I don't know, it'd be like the President of the United States dating the Prime Minister of Canada. Like,
yeah, that'd be the day.
It would, if people knew, it would be a scandal of unbelievable proportions. So it would be a thing that would have to be kept in secret. It's that kind of political relationship with them. But Rao's not the only one. Chandra Nallar is pansexual. She used to be in love with Gideon Jura, and he's not with us anymore. She fell out of love with him before that, but she's currently in love with Nissa Ravain, the elf from Zendikar, who is the third queer planeswalker. Nissa and Chandra have been building up over the past 4 years, and
that was my question. Has it been building, or did that just get slipped in there one day and somebody said, "Hey, this is a thing now"?
The first elements of it were dropped in Oath of the Gatewatch.
Okay, so
4
pretty
years
early.
Ago. They were developed on Kaladesh and then on Amonkhet. On Amonkhet, they kind of took a step back, and then Nissa left the Gatewatch in Dominaria. And then when they all reunite in War of the Spark, in the War of the Spark Ravnica novel, they finally, Chandra and Nissa finally get to reunite and let each other, hey, the world's about to end, but just wanted you to know that I love you. And they both say it.
And we've got one last night. Like that?
They're fighting for their lives, so it's not even a one last night. It's, I hope we all don't die right here, right now. It literally happens in the middle of a battle.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, so we'll see where that develops. We've got Greg Weisman's second novel, War of the Spark Forsaken, that picks up some of those story threads from War of the Spark. Comes out November, I want to say 22nd, sometime in November.
Let's pretend it's November 22nd. That means November 23rd, everybody listening can catch it on the Vorthos Cast, the entire summary of the novel, right?
We'll probably talk about it in December. I don't know. We haven't scheduled out that far yet.
How long does it take you to read a magic novel? Like, I assume because you're a contractor, you don't have any pieces of the novel prior to it being released.
No. So I don't work with Magic Story at all. I read the stories when everybody else does. I'm a slow reader. I would believe that I have some kind of visual processing thing that slows me down. The War of the Spark took me 3 whole days. I knew people who finished it in around like 4 or 5 hours. It went pretty quick.
How long is that novel? 3 days. I thought that was fast.
It's like 300 some pages. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I'm a terribly slow reader too. I think you're not supposed to read the words, like hear yourself saying the words in your head. I don't know. That's apparently a thing.
I don't know what it is. I read very slowly. So the novels are, I mean, we schedule out for the Vorthos Cast. We schedule out our novel summaries appropriately so that everyone has plenty of time. So
plenty of time to enjoy them.
I go into crunch mode when we have a novel because it's for me a lot of reading. Wilderness Quest took me I think about 3 days. Also, that's only 200 pages. So.
Oh, and I loved your guys' summary of it. I did. I'm not going to link to it in the notes here because it was so recent, but I did love it. I loved the quick summary you did on Garrick and his dad and why he is the way he is and before he was cursed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did like all of that.
Garrick's a great character who's never really gotten to be a character much in Magic Story, and he finally is getting there again now that he's not cursed. I had I just wrote him for Arena and had a lot of time digging into his backstory and digging into who he is and what he's about. He's a good guy. But
and you know what? Now that I have my own kid, I'm all of that is a little bit more resounding with me in that you know what he's about, and he's not all good, but nobody's all good.
Yeah, he's been really bad recently, and and really murdery, but he's getting better, and I think he's rediscovering his compassion, which is really nice for the character.
Hey, do you think that that's an important thing for
absolutely.
Magic to represent is prominent father figures? If we're talking about representation, I mean, there's a lot of that not happening everywhere where Magic is being consumed, right?
So, family dynamics is a good point of representation we can talk about too. Planeswalkers historically for a long time were considered wandering loners of the multiverse. And didn't really have permanent ties anywhere. Magic recently has done a lot to break that down and be like, if these are going to be our prominently branded characters, they need to have relationships. They need to have emotions and connections that people can relate to. So we have Tamio, who has a husband and children and an extended family on Kamigawa that she visits. Teferi has a wife. I don't know if Sabir is still alive. She might be. But he spends a lot of time with his daughter, Niambi, on Dominaria.
Yeah, she was prominent story figure in the Dominaria story, right? And she got her own card and stuff.
She had her own card in the Teferi Planeswalker deck for that set.
That's right. And now with Throne of Eldraine, if we're talking about Garrick, we've got the Kenrith twins, right? Yep. And we've got their family, which is a very good example of representation in Magic because they have, what's the proper word, a blended family?
Yeah, so Rowan and Will are twins who were born to Alginus Kenrith, who was a knight and is now High King of the realm. He was seduced by a witch in the wilds, and they as a couple had Rowan and Will, and their current family, Lyndon Kenrith, is their mother, their adopted mother, who is black. Rowan and Will are very, very white. And Alginus is white. Lyndon is black and married Alginus after resurrecting Rowan and Will because they were killed by the witch as little babies. And Lyndon and Alginus had their own 2 kids, Hazel, who's 11, and Eric, who is 4. So they have 2 mixed-race children and 2 adoptive children from Alginus's first... We'll be generous and call her first wife. It's a little more
Yeah.
malicious than that.
Did they?
But yeah, and
It's fine.
and
It's fine. It makes for good storytelling.
but Rowan and Will consider Linda their mom. They haven't known another mother. They don't know about their history until the end of the novel. This is a little spoiler alerty, so I guess retroactively apply that. Pretend you didn't hear anything, if you haven't read the novel yet and want to. But
Well, everybody paused the show a few minutes ago, and then they went and listened to the Vorthos Cast. Now they're coming back here to listen to this.
hopefully,
That's what happened.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a situation where we have a multi-ethnic family, and that's fantastic for Magic. I know I have a lot of friends in the Magic community who are in interracial marriages and have mixed children, and for them to see these characters represented on cards is really special for them. Race is something that Magic has been doing a lot better at recently, and gender as well. We live in a world where there are 4 black women planeswalkers. We have Kaya, Samut, Amanatu, and Vivian. Yeah, so we have 4 black women. We have Sahili, who is South Asian. We have Narset, who is the Ojutai clan. It's kind of built off of Tibetan monks. We just had Yangu and Yangling brought in War of the Spark, and of course at 2020 respectively, who have cards outside the global series, so they've kind of crossed over into the regular Magic multiverse. They are both Chinese developed characters. That was their origins were designed with the Wizards team over in China, so they were very.
I think that Wizards did an article about that.
Yep.
Or I saw an article about, maybe it was Gavin that was overseas, and there was a whole thing.
Yeah, Gavin might have written the article, but there was a whole article about the Global Deck series decks and the development of Shang Yangu and Mu Yanling.
Yeah,
they're two great characters who I've gotten to write both of them now for Arena. And so Magic is really looking to broaden representation through the Planeswalkers a lot. And the last 4 years, most of the new Planeswalkers introduced have been explicit, at least the human ones have been explicitly with the goals of broadening. Angrath is a dad also. His whole thing is that he wants to get home to his daughters, as long as we're talking parents. So,
very excellent. I didn't know that. He's not one of the humanoid ones, so he's not as relatable unless you are a Vorthos by nature, maybe.
Yeah. And that's a great twist on a red-black character who historically in Magic have been the evil villains. Angrath is just angry because he got trapped on Ixalan for 14 years and couldn't go home, and he just wanted to see his kids.
That's right. You know what? Immediately relatable as a dad with a newborn baby 2 years ago, working out of town and only wanting to be home and not wanting to leave, and having my wife go through some newborn depression and self-doubt and all of that jazz that comes along with building a new family and a husband that works away. And yeah, that's real life right there. Mm-hmm. And some Minotaur trapped on Ixalan relates it to me through the game I love. Mm-hmm. That's why Magic's so good, everybody. That's it.
Yeah, and that's really the core of representation, is seeing yourself represented in a character. And Magic is doing that, and is really leading a lot of fantasy IPs in that regard, and still has a long way to go. We don't have, something very near and dear to me is gender. We don't have any trans planeswalkers. We don't have any non-binary planeswalkers. The closest we have is Ashiok, who we don't know anything about. Ashiok is... I've been critical of Ashiok as non-binary representation because of the way that character was built in Theros, and the idea that under the old WotC style guide, where that would not use a singular they them, which the cards do now use, they were like, well, how do we build a non-binary character, or a character who's beyond gender? And they went with the nightmare horror trope, which is not great for non-binary rep, because non-binary people are just people like anybody else. they went with, whoa, we don't know Ashiok's pronouns or gender or anything about Ashiok, and that's not a great way to do it.
Wizards said that they don't know, or people in the story said that they don't know?
Officially, we don't know Ashiok's gender. Ashiok might have a gender. We just don't know it. Ashiok might have pronouns that Ashiok likes and uses, but we don't know them. And that's not really representation. That's kind of sidestepping. I adore Ashiok as a character. Ashiok is one of, in the upper echelons of Planeswalkers I enjoy. I think Ashiok is a fascinating character with fascinating motivations and a wonderful personality. I adore horror, and I got to write Ashiok for Worthless Mark, and it was probably one of my favorite scripts. Just trying to figure out who this terrible, terrible person is and how to make...
that must have been difficult to not know.
It was tricky because Ashiok hasn't really appeared much in Magic story. Ashiok had a small cameo in the Deck Fading comics, but no dialogue. And there was a 2-part story about creating gods on Theros, where Ashiok had like 2 lines to Phoenix right at the end. And I had to build an entire character around what I had. I kind of latched onto the word beauty. And Ashiok ended up becoming a fine artist, a connoisseur of aesthetics. Ashiok is subtle and elegant, but horrific and terrifying. If you've gotten to listen to Ashiok's lines on Arena, I hope you appreciate the creepiness and the incongruity and the dissonance that exists in that script. It's really delightful, I think. But yeah, like I would love to see an actual human planeswalker who is like, hey, I'm non-binary. My pronouns are they, them, or is he here, or various other neopronouns. I would love to see a canon trans planeswalker. As far as trans characters go right now, we have Alesha, who smiles at death, who is dead. She died 1,000 years ago, but her story...
And she's not a planeswalker. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be planeswalkers, but most of the IP is centered around the planeswalker being, right?
Planeswalkers are Magic's character brand. Legendary creatures are nice. We have Kaineos and Tiro from the 4-color commander decks.
Yep, the C16 decks.
Yes, they are a gay couple. They're 2 dudes whose power of love helped lead a revolution against a tyrannical archon on Theros. They freed Meletus from tyranny, and their card is beautiful. It's one of them is holding the other's helmet and is gently giving their husband head scritches. It's adorable. It's really wholesome, and it's really nice to see in a card. We have 2 characters that damn well better get cards soon. Hal and Elena are 2 trappers and rangers from Innistrad. They're 2 lesbians who...
Well, that sounds like a pretty good commander gem for maybe like C20, Commander 2020.
Yeah, we had a recent episode with Gavin Verhey, who does a lot of the work on those Commander products.
Yep.
Talking about characters, you know how likely they are to show up in the near future. And Hal and Elena are on the top of the list. They're characters that were featured in a couple of the stories for Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon, and people have been clamoring for them for years now, and hopefully soon. But yeah, like, more representation at the planeswalker level is where it needs to be. And like the one place where Wizards is like really, really far behind is with body shapes. Pretty much every human planeswalker that exists is physically and proportionally idealized in the way comic book heroes tend to be. All of Magic's human women basically look the same.
Yeah,
do
you think that that's a cultural thing, or do you think that was a what's like what we were talking about before, a result of pop culture, nerd culture in the 90s kind of becoming, I don't want to say more mainstream, but I think you know what I mean. Do you think that that's why that is?
I mean, that's just the way. That's just a Western cultural thing, really, since the 50s, where we have idealized masculine and feminine bodies.
Yeah.
And it's so Magic pushes. So we have two types of male bodies. We have a normal thin male bodies. So your Jaces and your Teferis, and then we have the Silver Age superhero bodies, the Gideons and the Garrux with the with the bulging Superman, Captain America muscles that are so ridiculously unrealistic, which is fine for some characters because it is fantasy. But we have no fat planeswalkers. We just don't. We have we have over 40 planeswalker characters printed on cards, and Duretti is really the only physically disabled one. So yeah, and that's it. Magic can do better when it comes to ability, disabilities. It can do better when it comes to body shapes and body types. Those, I think, are the places where representation in Magic can grow the most. I obviously can't say anything about the future, and none of my comments are reflective of any future knowledge I may or may not have. I just want to be clear about that. Hopefully we see more in the future, and
you know what this sounds like? This sounds like you're getting into putting a bow on how you feel about representation in the Magic IP. And
yeah,
where do you want to leave everybody so when they turn off the podcast and they go out into the real world or onto Twitter or Facebook or to their local game store to play Magic, what do you want them to think about when they see these characters that you've talked about now?
Well, first of all, how dare you insinuate Twitter is not the real world? I spend way too much time on Twitter for it to not be the real world. So I guess the kind of the big final thought is episode summary. Magic is doing a hell of a lot better in terms of representation than it used to. It has been doing a lot of good strides over the last bunch of years. There's a lot of directions where it needs improvement, and hopefully it can do that. I like, not to toot my own horn, but having a trans and queer creator working with those teams, I think, is something Magic should do more of. Magic, I think, should diversify some of the voices inside the building. I know getting outside writers for Magic Story now has let them do that a little bit. We've had a lot of women writing for Magic. We've had and that's been really good. It's brought a lot of perspectives that Magic historically has been written by men. Not always as recently. A lot of the internal writers in Wizard of the Coast did a great job. I personally know a bunch of the women in there who had huge impact on a lot of the directions the recent stuff has gone. And I think for fans, if there are characters out there, especially Planeswalkers, who really resonate with you, shout about them. Make your love known, not just for the community. Wizards loves to see what people like about their characters. And from a creative standpoint, that helps creators who are going to be designing these stories and future characters hone in on what people enjoy about the IP and those branded characters, and understand where to push and what to talk about with those characters. And if there's things you want to see in the game that aren't there, let Wizards of the Coast know. At them on Twitter. Send emails to feedback. If you're ever doing any of the surveys, there's usually a question where they ask for like anything else to say something there. Respond on Facebook, on social media, anywhere. Like just be polite always, because you are interacting with real people on the other end of those accounts. But make your desires known, because people are listening. I'm not gonna stop shouting about the things that I want in Magic. I am a contractor, but I am also still a fan. I am still a consumer of these characters and these stories. And I don't make the decisions of where they go. So my feedback on where things can go and should go and where I'd like them to go is something I'm going to keep saying. And the more voices there are shouting about what they'd like to see and what they already love, that's all helpful feedback to the people who are making these characters and stories, to help make Magic a game that better represents its own communities and the people who exist and play Magic.
Yeah, to represent their own community. I think that is the important take home there. And that's where Wizards is doing a better job, where it used to just be maybe what everybody thought that fantasy and sci-fi wanted. And now that we've got tools like the surveys, there's a commander survey out right now. This is September of 2019. There's a commander survey out. When you do leave feedback, especially on public forum, other people who might be like you can jump on and say, hey, yeah, me too. Or I was, maybe somebody was waffling and you were the straw that broke the camel's back for them, and now their voice is also known, and somebody else's, which is powerful, even if it is just on social media or behind the guise of a computer screen. That's not always a bad place to be.
Oh, it's not at all, and that's something I have a lot of personal experience with. I can speak a little candidly about my own experiences being trans. I would not have realized I was trans if it wasn't for the prominence and loud voices of a number of fantastic trans women in the Magic community, especially in digital spaces. I'm very loud and out and proud about it, because I want to be that kind of person for other people. Every time someone DMs me and says hey, I was struggling with my identity, and seeing someone like you in the Magic community or working on Magic, it helps me feel better about myself. I have not cried at any of those moments. Those are the best moments in the Magic community, and I think that's the absolute power of what adding your voice and seeing yourself represented in games can do, and that's part of why I push. That's why I will keep pushing. Trans Planeswalkers are bust for me personally.
Oh, I love that. That sounds like a t-shirt.
I should get one made and put in the rotation.
That's the next t-shirt that you're wearing to like a big Magic Fest or something. Trans Planeswalkers or
hopefully
bust.
One day. Would be nice.
That's sick. Okay. If somebody did want to DM you, get in touch with you, contact you, email you, listen to your show, tell them where to go, because this is actually going to get cut into 2 episodes, so this will be at the back half of the second.
If you're interested in the Vorthos Cast in general, you can find us on SoundCloud. Our account there is the Vorthos Cast. You can also find us on Twitter at the Vorthos Cast. You can find us on Tumblr at the Vorthos Cast. And you can find us on and support us on Patreon. So that's patreon.com/the Vorthos Cast. We got that going as kind of my group project thing. And if you want to reach out to me personally, you can find me on Twitter at Loreley Writes. That's LoreleyWrites. And I'm on there literally all the time. I cannot stop. It's fantastic. I adore Twitter.
That's excellent. You are the minority there.
Look,
I'm sure. Despite
Twitter
what people
is
say.
all about sculpting it into the experience you want. You don't have to see anything that you don't want to see on Twitter. It's all about navigating the space in a way that is healthy and productive for you, and that's largely what I've done. And
that's right. It's
Twitter is a place where I build friendships and do business. I've gotten work opportunities. I've found, as cheesy as it sounds, I found romance on Twitter. One of my current partners.
No, that's cool. It's 2019. We're good with that.
Both of my current partners I found through online methods and online communities. Twitter's great if you just want places to talk with people about the things that you both love. Twitter's great for that too. At this point,
I gotta convince my wife to get Twitter. I reference my wife on Twitter so often.
Yeah, at this point,
she hasn't
I
got to
kind of wish
convince
they
her.
were sponsoring this episode or sponsoring me or something. Could use a little bit of that Silicon Valley cash flow.
Twitter cash flow. Yeah, no, that's real life. When I get there, I'll shoot you a DM. Anyways, Loreley, thank you a ton. It's been educational, enlightening even for me. I am less in the dark now, 1,000% than when we started. I can't thank you enough for being here. I know that everybody in the Commander Ad Populum, Twitterverse, Facebook, our Discord, everywhere, everybody does like these interviews because they do give a very human side to Magic the Gathering, even if it's not Commander specific. They do like it. Expect them to follow you, reach out, consume your content. I very much recommend that they do that because obviously you're a terrific human being, and I very much do enjoy the Vorthos Cast. So I hope everybody that is listening does go actually and find the Vorthos Cast because it's very good.
And plugging the show. And thanks for having me on, because if you want to, if you feel like you are the kind of person who needs to get better about these kinds of issues, what you did here in these shows is the best first step is to listen and listen to the voices of people in those minority groups and what they have to say. So I honestly and truly very much appreciate you having me on the show.
So that's it. I hope it was informative, enlightening, educational, whatever words you want to use. It was all of those things for me. I very much appreciate Loreley for coming on. Magic and social media, podcasting, writing, education, all that jazz. It's all super interesting and informative to me. I hope it was for you as well. Second big thank you, FusionGamingOnline.com. Check them out for all of your Magic the Gathering needs. Third big thank you, all of the Patreon supporters and everybody in general who listens, retweets, follows, shares any of the Commander Ad Populum content. And that includes like the Altar of the Day on Twitter. This is Commander for the people, and sometimes I don't think I do a good enough job expressing my gratitude for all of the people. So if that's you, and it is because you're listening, and it is because you follow me on Facebook or Twitter or you retweet or whatever it is that you're doing to help me, I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. I have over the last year been able to, I'm going to call it live out my dream job, just do Magic all day, working from home, spending more time with my kid, not working out of town, flying literally 250 times a year in 2017. That's how many different planes I was on. So to all of the Magic people out there, in the great community for the great game that is so awesome. Could be the greatest game ever created, I'm not sure. I do thank you, and I will see you next Wednesday.